Hi, my name is Barry Sterling Mitchell. I produce the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings and the Bias Plus reports. Today is what, Benny? I can't even see that. The 25th?
Today is the 25th. It is my oldest daughter's birthday today. Yeah, Tiresias Maximus.
Tiresias Maximus. Anywho, happy birthday, Tyrese. And this is Ben and Barry on football.
And I am Tyrese's dad. My name is Ben Dickerson. I am your co-host also. And guess what? Just like last week, I got some who would have thunk it's again. Now I'm going to read some of these to you. My handwriting is really bad, so if I stumble over my own handwriting, please excuse me. But I want to make sure I get these right. Number one, Sam Darnold is still undefeated with the Vikings, and he leads the league in touchdown passes with 8. This is after 3 games of the season. 8 touchdown passes, leads the league. Justin Fields and the Steelers are also still undefeated, and he's only thrown 2 touchdown passes. Who would have thunk it? Sam Darnold and Justin Fields. 2 cast-offs, I believe they were called by some folks. Now, here's a big one. This is big. Jaden Daniels, in his 3rd NFL game, set an NFL rookie record 91.3% completion percentage. That's incredible. That's a rookie record, NFL rookie record. Another record is he has multi-touchdown passes, multiple touchdown runs, and no interceptions in his first 3 games. Also a rookie record. Washington, the Washington Commanders, his team, has scored on every drive over the last 2 games, excluding 2 kneel downs before the half and 1 kneel down at the end of a game. So every time they got the ball, they put points on the board through 2 consecutive games. And they have no punts and no turnovers in 2 consecutive games. That's incredible. It's unheard. I've never heard of that.
Well, you have this segment, and I don't have a name for mine, but I did want to say that we probably want to at least acknowledge and congratulate ourselves, because we're the ones who said that's your number 1 quarterback this year, right?
Absolutely.
Now,
yes.
You mentioned last week when we talked a little bit about that, about, had this quarterback gone to that team instead, you know what I mean? If Caleb was with the Commanders, would he have that type of success,
right,
with Jaden? But the field, the pocket presence combined with the ability to run is at an unheard level with him. And I think that's kind of what we liked about him. We're looking at guys ready to take the step up to the pros, and if you ask a pro, he loves the ability to run, but he wants to remain in the, to use that pocket. Let's face it, how much money do they invest in their offensive line? Invest all that money. I don't want you just running away from the pocket. These guys standing looking at you. So long story short, we look like geniuses, on that one anyway. There's 1 out of a million, but hey, we'll take the 1.
Oh yeah, we'll take the 1.
We'll take
the really great thing I think that really bodes well for him in his future is, even though he is a bona fide dual threat quarterback, unlike most who actually lean on their running ability and have success throwing the ball, he's been leaning on his passing ability.
Well,
he's shown great pocket presence.
Absolutely. But he runs that option. He ran that option so good, he basically tiptoed into the end zone because he had the whole defense going, with the fake handoff.
Right. That's a skill that a lot of fans don't really pay a lot of attention to. Ball handling. Lamar Jackson is also pretty wizard-like with ball handling skills. Mahomes is the same way. The way these guys can tuck it pull it, fake it, and all that stuff. That's a unique skill that everybody doesn't have.
So he's emerging in the NFC East.
Yes.
Sudden, the Commanders can't be an afterthought anymore.
Bro, there was maybe two people that I can remember, and I can't even remember exactly who they were, but I think I heard it twice over the multitude of analysts that talked about the upcoming season. Two people said, you heard it here first, the Washington Commanders are going to win the NFC East. And everybody else looked at them like, okay, yeah, but guess what? It's crazy.
The touchdown that he threw
To McLaurin.
the scary Terry in the corner, right?
Yes.
We were talking about his offensive coordinator,
Cliff Kingsbury.
Right, who ran the, what's it called again?
Air raid.
Air raid, where that communication happens. Where's the green grass? I'm wondering now, are we saying that is he running the air raid option slash?
This is a modified air raid. I think Cliff Kingsbury has tweaked his college air raid offense quite a bit after not being able to make it work the way he wanted to with Kyler Murray. It's a better system now, but he has definitely worked on it and changed it.
You know what I mean? Or to have someone with, who can operate it, because, what they were saying about that play was that with when the quarterback came up on him, that was his signal to go. Just the fact that he came up on him, right? But they were expecting that he was going to come up on him with inside leverage, but he came up on him with outside leverage. Mm-hmm. So Scary Terry knew he was supposed to be going to the outside, so he adjusted his route to give him a little fake to the inside and then take it back up on him, kind of on his own. So the fact that they timed it out and were able to hit it the way they did, which I understand had like a 10% chance of success, that pass catch was absolutely amazing. But I'm just thinking about it in terms of Cliff Kingsbury. Is that something, that now is in their minds? That's how they think when they're going out and attacking defense.
Right. Well, every really good wide receiver works on their footwork drills so that they're able to get where they need to go as quickly as possible, depending on the leverage that the defensive back takes against them. So yeah, if he's shading you to the inside and you got to get to the outside and you give him a fake and he doesn't go for it, you still have to be able to get around him and then stem your route back up and get to where you're supposed to be as fast as you can. So, there's a multitude of ways to do it, but they work very hard at that.
All righty. First up, Bias Plus Reports NFL Week 4, 2024 to 2025 season. Cowboys at your New York Football Giants. And the Bias Plus score is a measly little 3.5 in favor of Cowboys. What's up?
Hey, that's nice. Well, I like it. Let's see what happens. They're playing at MetLife, so the Giants are at home. The New York Football Giants got their first win last weekend. It was 21-15 on the road against the Cleveland Browns. My quarterback, Daniel Jones, was clutch. He went 24-34 through 2 touchdown passes. Both of them went to superstar first-round pick Malik Nabers. They came with a balanced attack in this one. Devin Singletary, our running back, ran for 65 yards on 16 carries. He scored 1 touchdown, and he had another 43 yards on 4 catches. Singletary's starting to come into his own after a really good year last year with the Texans. He did lose a fumble, but Daniel Jones had 0 turnovers, and the defense kept the ball in his hands and the clock on the Giants' side with 2 3-and-outs, 2 turnovers on downs, and 2 fumble recoveries, along with a dominant 8 sacks and 17 quarterback hits on Deshaun Watson. It's a wonder he can still think straight. Now, Cowboys are coming to town. They struggled on offense for most of their game against the visiting Ravens, and they trailed 28-6 midway through the fourth quarter. They finally got back on the scoreboard with a 1-yard run by Dak Prescott, a 15-yard pass from Dak to Jalen Tolbert, and a 16-yarder to Cavante Turpin. This guy would play the USFL, by the way, before the UFL. And he was basically a kick returner, but he's becoming a pretty good receiver at this point for the Cowboys. Unfortunately, those 3 scores at the end there in the fourth quarter were far too little and far too late. Take the Giants at home, folks.
Going against the bias, eh?
Yes, sir.
Going with the Giants over the Cowboys. All right, man. Yeah, well, we're moving on to the Bengals at the Panthers. Bias plus score 11.3 favors the Bengals. And I said every time I said the Panthers, I'm going to laugh, Benny. Because you said last week that the red rifle can't save them.
Did I say that?
Yes, you did. So I was laughing all weekend. I'm like, man, wait a minute, hold it. Where does Panthers defense come from all of a sudden?
Where did this Panthers playing like a real NFL team come from all of a sudden?
Tell us about it.
It makes you wonder. It makes you wonder what's going on down in Carolina with that coaching staff. That they could look so different with Andy Dalton at quarterback than they did from when Bryce Young was there. It is well, let me tell you what I found out. So the Panthers brass decided to bench Bryce Young and start veteran backup Andy Dalton. The word on the street is the Panthers wide receivers are the ones that set this change into motion. They have become very frustrated with Bryce Young, and they didn't hesitate to let the coaches know it. So that sounds like where it came from. The difference is night and day. That makes me wonder, is Bryce Young really that bad? I don't know. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens in the future over the next couple of weeks. Anyway, now there's a good chance we might never see Bryce Young play another down for Carolina, especially if Dalton keeps moving that offense the way that he did last week. He led the Panthers into Vegas, threw for 319 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. It's like he never skipped a beat from when he was starting last. The final score was actually
Daniels.
Excuse me?
He turned into Jaden Daniels.
No, he turned into Andy Dalton at his best.
Yeah, I mean, you're right.
36-22 win. They ran the ball well too, and the defense was very solid. Now, Cincinnati got to host Washington as part of the Monday night doubleheader. And we talked about all the things that Jaden Daniels did, but we got to talk about Cincinnati. As we talked about earlier, the game did feature 0 punts and 0 turnovers. That counts for the Bengals also. They had 0 punts and 0 turnovers. The Bengals opened the scoring on their first drive with a deep touchdown pass from Burrow to Jamar Chase. For the game, Burrow threw for 324 yards and 3 touchdowns, but ironically, that first score was the last time they led in the game. While the Commanders scored touchdowns on their first 3 possessions, the Bengals missed the field goal, but then came back and made 2 more. In the second half, the Bengals scored 2 touchdowns on all 3. They scored touchdowns on all 3 of their second half possessions, but Washington came back, scored 2 touchdowns themselves, and made a field goal, and ended up beating the Bengals by 5. I'll tell you the truth. I believe in Andy Dalton. I really do. I'm sorry I said those bad things about him last week. He looked good. He looked sharp. He looked rested. Fresh legs, fresh arm. They're going to be at home. The crowd's going to be rocking. And the Bengals defense is shabby. I'm going to take the Panthers.
Oh, okay. Going. That's a 360 right there. Going against the bias, going with the Panthers. And you know, when you have, and we've seen this, the numbers are averaged out So any numbers you see include the play of Bryce Young. So now Andy Dalton is just raising the averages. But when you look at the averages, sometimes it's hard to separate the fact that on his own, Andy's numbers is going to look a lot different, without having
Right.
the first two games averaged in. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But I was like, the Red Rifle was out there dicing. He getting it done, man. All right, you going against the bias. And again, what is the bias? We take a look at net points, which you can find at the Sterling Net Point Power Rankings.com. And we look at the turnover differential, and we put it all together in a super secret formula that spits out the bias plus
Super
reports.
secret formula.
And again, just think about fundamentally the idea is that if one team is winning by an average of, say, 20 points, and they play a team that's winning by an average of 5 points, the bias is the difference in that net point differential of 20 points. So that would favor the team with the greater net point average. So that's all we're saying. And that's why we use the word biased. You can't bet on it too much, but it does have a certain success ratio, which we'll talk about a little bit later. All right. Broncos Jets. Bias plus score of 7 favors the Jets. Jets, the only team I had any family that ever played for. What you got?
Well, what I've got is the Jets will be at home. And the big deal in New York or at MetLife in Jersey is that Aaron Rodgers looked really good last week in his first home game since his injury last season. He had his way with the Patriots secondary. 27-35, that's pretty efficient. 281 yards, that's nice. 2 touchdowns, 0 turnovers. Look like vintage Aaron Rodgers. Defensively, the Jets hammered the Patriots. They sacked Jacoby Brissett 5 times. And then when they took Brissett out and sent rookie backup Drake May in basically for garbage time, I guess just to get a little work, it was already a lost cause. They sacked him twice too. They recorded a pretty brutal 15 total quarterback hits. So that was a tough one there for the old Patriots. Now the Denver Broncos, who will be visiting the Jets, were on the road in Tampa Bay, and they caught the Buccaneers slipping. Rookie quarterback Bo Nix got the first win of his career and Denver's first win of the season. He had 0 turnovers. He contributed to the Broncos 136 total yards. Rushing, he ran well. And he and Jaleel McLaughlin both scored rushing touchdowns. Kicker Will Lutz contributed with 4 field goals, and an inspired defense sacked Baker Mayfield 7 times. Tough day for the Bucs. Broncos will have to travel this week, though. And when they play the Jets at MetLife, I got to go with the Jets.
So, Ben, Bo Nix, dual threat quarterback.
Yes.
So let's make sure when we start to list them that we keep his name around, throw him on the list there,
Absolutely.
So, all right, I made note of that. All right, so you're going with give it to me again.
The bias, the Jets.
Going with the Jets, going with the bias. And again, what you said about Aaron, in my mind, I'm sitting there watching that game thinking Aaron is slicing and dicing this defense up. It's like they identified that short pass or those passes are just, you can run the ball when you want to. And then I kept saying, how come they keep letting Aaron roll out on them? It's like, you can't contain Aaron. What do you got? And then he rolled down and looked good at it. Like, he was like, okay, I got a little bit of spring in my step here. So
yeah, he said he's beginning to feel like himself again.
Well, he definitely was. maybe they weren't expecting him to roll out. They're like, oh, Aaron Rodgers will stay in the pocket. Nah, he didn't do that. He rolled out when he wanted to, and y'all let him. So, all right, Jets, Jets. Glenn's going with the bias. All right, let's take a look at the Jags at the Texans. Bias plus score of 12.7 favors the Texans, but I believe these are both fundamentally in the negative on net points. It's just one's less negative than the other, which I was a little surprised at again with the Texans. I'll take a double look at that. What do you got?
I got the Texans being home and the Jaguars doing a little traveling. So let's go right to the Texans. They seem to be out of sorts almost from the beginning of their game. On the second play of the first series of the game, C.J. Stroud had a pass deflected and intercepted. Between the crowd noise and D.C. Brian Flores' multiple pre-snap looks and disguises, 6 of the Texans' 7 first half penalties happened before the snap. 7 penalties in the first half. You cannot win like that. Minnesota had them all discombobulated. They didn't find the end zone until deep into the third quarter. The Houston offense got manhandled to the tune of 5 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, and a complete shutdown of their run game. Now, Joe Mixon was out. He was injured. But I was expecting a lot more from Cam Akers. They couldn't get anything going on the ground. They actually had 9 tackles for loss, which is pretty bad. But if you want to talk about getting manhandled, let's talk about the Jacksonville Jaguars. They got boat raced by the Buffalo Bills on Monday night, 47-10. Dating back to last season, they had 8 straight losses. Let me repeat that. Dating back to last season, the Jacksonville Jaguars have 8 straight losses. They gave Trevor Lawrence a 5-year, $275 million contract over the summer, and he has been terrible. Even worse is their defense. If you can believe anything can be worse, they blew 2 double-digit leads in a week 1 loss to the Miami Dolphins. And against Buffalo on Monday night, they gave up 385 total yards and 4 touchdowns without recording a sack or a turnover. They did not record a sack or a turnover. Bruh. They think they're going to go into Houston and win a game. D'Amico Ryans is going to have them boys ready. Take the Texans on this one. No doubt about it.
Shady McCoy has been ragging on the Jaguars quarterback.
Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, I mean, really. Almost like I told you so, he getting paid all this money, why don't we talk about him? Really ragging on him tough. I always thought that Trevor Lawrence was a pretty good quarterback. And then you look at who's his offensive coordinator and head coach?
The Super Bowl winning head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles.
So
Dougie P.
You start to look at his brain trust and you're like, okay, what, is the problem them or is the problem him? Or how much of it is both? So yeah. But he got the bag, so we'll have to see how that goes. You're going with the bias and going with the Texans on this, right?
Yes, sir.
Next up, we have those Minnesota Vikings in a division contest with the Green Bay Packers. Bias plus score of 6.2 favors the Vikings, Benny, and this could be an intriguing game of the week.
Would this be your candidate?
It's one I got in mind here. I'm looking at it.
You have it in mind, but you don't want to declare it yet?
Look, there's a couple more games we have to take a look at. There's some competition afoot.
I understand. So they are kind of like a candidate, but they're not for sure. Because
Oh,
you're only going to actually pick one. Is that correct?
well, you got to have a group of candidates in order to pick one from
In order to pick one. Right, exactly. That's my point. So they are a candidate.
a candidate. Yeah.
This game is a candidate. Okay, that's good. I would agree. It's a division matchup. Two teams that are playing pretty well. Two teams that have a lot of intrigue going for themselves. One of them quarterbacked by Sam Darnold. One of them quarterbacked by Malik Willis, who's definitely a cast off. If I used the word cast off before, I mean, well, let's talk about it. So last week, before the Packers went to Tennessee, it was reported that Jordan Love was back at practice. But as I expected, Matt LaFleur decided to give Malik one more shot at starting quarterback, especially since it was going to be against his old team that traded him to Green Bay for a 2025 seventh round pick. Let's remember, there's only 7 rounds in the NFL draft. They gave a 7th round pick to get rid of him. Malik Willis did not disappoint. He was dynamic. He threw for 202 yards, 1 touchdown through the air. He also ran for 73 yards and another score. Bro, those are Lamar Jackson numbers, easily. The Titans had no chance against the defense that recorded 8 sacks and 12 quarterback hits. If Will Levis makes it through this season, I don't know, man. It's going to be tough. And on top of all that, the Packers run up a 30-14 win. It was a pretty dominant win. Now, before I go on, let me first say I am and have been a Sam Darnold supporter. I've been critical of him in the past because he had a tendency to turn the ball over, but I respected his physical skills, and I thought if he landed in the right situation, he could thrive. I believe he has landed in the right situation. The Minnesota Vikings completely dismantled the Houston Texans last week, 34-7, and Sam Darnold had a day. Their offense could not have been more balanced. Darnold threw the ball 28 times, and they ran the ball 28 times. Doesn't get any more balanced than that. Darnold completed 17 passes for 181 and 4 touchdowns. Aaron Jones and company totaled 118 yards on the ground, and Brian Flores' led defense shut down Houston's run game completely and held C.J. Stroud to 1 score and picked him off twice. They looked tremendous. Tremendous. As good as Malik Willis played, and as good as the Packers played, and even though they're at home, I am enamored, if that's the right word, with this Minnesota Vikings team. I'm going to take Minnesota to win that one on the road in Green Bay.
Going with the bias, going with the Vikings.
Yes, sir.
Couple points. Here you go. Did Malik Willis get a petty game ball?
That's a Pittsburgh thing.
Absolutely. But that would have been his if he was with Pittsburgh, that would have been his opportunity for sure, for sure. And to be quite honest with you, I had kind of forgotten how thoroughly the Texans got handled. And it was showing up in the net points, and I'm looking at the net points and I'm going, something don't look right. I'm thinking
it was bad.
Texans doing good, Texans doing good, but I think they got spanked.
Yeah, it was bad.
Oh, okay.
It was almost inexplicable. It really, I mean, let's face it. This is an up and coming team. This is a team that people expected a lot from. And I haven't even really heard any, well, I guess you can't have a clear-cut explanation, but, you know, I'm listening to these analysts and they seem just as baffled as we are.
Well, people are now trying to explain why Sam Darnold is playing now at the level. And it was funny. I was listening to one explanation and I'm thinking that they're going to start to talk about his current Vikings coaching. But they were reaching back to the Niners, and they're saying he came away from the Niners a better quarterback.
I can believe that.
I'm a Niner guy, so I'm saying
But
yeah.
I still got to give credit to the brain trust of the Minnesota Vikings.
Well, absolutely. They're able to go ahead and stick him in there and they did it with Josh, right? Wasn't it the Vikings that did it with Josh?
Dobbs played for them for a little bit too.
Yeah, yeah. So they're pretty adept at bringing in an outside quarterback and getting them up to speed pretty quickly, I guess is what
Yeah, I think I gave them a solid 4 in the brain trust show, but I should have given them more than that.
Okay.
I really should
Go
have.
back and take a look at that. But
Not to mention, B-Flow is on fire right now. I sent you a video. I sent you a little clip. I don't know if you looked at it or not. After the Niners game,
yeah. I saw
everybody was shaking hands, and
um
Brock Purdy said, "That's a heck of a scheme he run."
yeah. Um and that's why when my son Chris, who's a Packer fan, when he was saying about whether or not to keep Malik Willis, if he's saying if Malik goes in and handles this Minnesota defense, then he would consider him the hot hand and would want to stay with him, even if Jordan Love was ready to go. And I'm like, well, Jordan Love's proven winner. We know what he can do. So, I could see, I would have Malik back to the bench and have Jordan, even, but there would be a buzz if Malik Willis goes in there and handles this Viking B-flow defense. Or
Yeah,
at the very least, who's the defensive coordinator for the the offensive coordinator for the Packers? That's the head coach, right?
yep. LaFleur, Matt LaFleur.
Matt LaFleur. So it's the genius of Matt LaFleur against the genius of B-flow.
Well, that's going to happen even if you quarterback. So
I did say this was a candidate, right, for an intriguing game.
yes, absolutely. I wouldn't want to. That's asking for trouble to play Malik Willis if you don't have to. You're asking for trouble. First of all, if you lose, you wish you had to play Love, and if you win, then that's asking for trouble. Why would you do that to yourself? You don't want to do that to yourself as a team. That doesn't make sense.
Hey, well, that's one fan's opinion there. So let's move it right along here, Benny. We have this would be what, NFC South, right? Another
Yes.
division team game.
Yes.
Saints at Falcons by a score of 31.7 favors the Saints. Okay, now you'll talk about it. I'm going to hold off. I'm going to let you talk about that Saints Eagles game and then the Falcons and all of that good stuff. You go ahead, do your thing.
Oh, okay. You got something on this stuff?
All
right. I'll give you my rundown and then we'll see what you got to say there. I'm curious. So this actually, to me, could also be an intriguing game candidate. Again, division foes. Both teams have had some success this year. The Saints, however, the Saints and the Falcons, however, are both coming off losses last week. So that kind of makes the intrigue even a little bit more because somebody's going to come out a winner, somebody's going to come out a loser. It's going to have a lot to do with the standings. But anyway, the Saints played host to the Philadelphia Eagles last week. By the way, my buddy Big Will went down there, and man, he was out on Bourbon Street videoing with nothing but Eagles fans out there.
What?
Dude, they traveled like kings. I listened to the crowd noise at the beginning of the game. I really paid attention to it. You couldn't tell who was doing good, who wasn't. Usually, the home team offense comes on the field, it gets a little quiet.
Right.
When it was loud the whole time. It was crazy. But anyway, the Saints lost a low-scoring game to the Eagles. It was a defensive slugfest. The final score was 15-12. Real tight one. First quarter field goal by Atlanta was their only score until Derek Carr hit Chris Olave for a touchdown with a little more than 2 minutes left in the game. Okay? A field goal in the first quarter, and they didn't score again till 2 minutes left in the game. They went for the 2-point conversion. They didn't get it. After that, all they could muster was another field goal. It was a big night in Atlanta with the Falcons hosting the Super Bowl champs on Sunday Night Football. They held the lead through the first half with a touchdown pass from Kirk Cousins to Drake London and a TD run by Bijan Robinson. Unfortunately, they allowed the Chiefs to pull within 14-13 by finishing the half with a 3-and-out and a Kirk Cousins interception. That kind of let the Chiefs get back into the game. That's the old Kirk Cousins primetime game mishap there. Unfortunately, that came back to bite him after playing so well the week before. But they had opportunities to score in the second half, but the Chiefs' defense stood up. They turned it over on downs twice in the fourth quarter, and both of those stops were in the red zone. So that had to hurt. That had to hurt. The Falcons will be at home in this one. Whew, man. It's a regular 1 o'clock game. I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one. This is going to be a tough one to call, but I'm going to call for the Falcons to make the bounce back.
I'm going to go against the bias, and that's a pretty big bias too, Benny. So
that's because the Saints started off.
Buster of the week. If this thing goes the way you think it's going to go.
Remember, the Saints were number one in points for.
Yeah, they were doing
just a week ago.
5 points a game at one point.
Right. That's why the bias is so big. But I'm telling you, I believe the Falcons have been playing well offensively. They ran into a little buzzsaw there with the Chiefs defense, but I believe they'll be home. They'll fix their issues, and they'll take care of business in this one.
Kirk Cousins, right?
That is correct.
I guess the thought that I wanted to share was just how the Philadelphia defense basically put the clamps on the Saints, and how their defensive line all of a sudden started playing well out of like the clear blue sky, because the Saints, like I said, we had been rolling, average 45 points a game. The bias was definitely in their favor, And I told him, I said that the combination of and this is differentials, because Jalen Hurts is going to do some good things. He's going to have a couple of fumbles or interceptions or whatever. That one he threw in the end, egregious, but the defense played so well with this against the Saints. And then they had the one play where the tight end for the Eagles ran that little crossing pattern, and apparently the Saints were in a man at that time. That's my grandson. And 3 guys, it was like the Keystone Cops. 3 guys ran into each other and went down. And then now your tight end is running down the sideline wide open. It really sort of busted the Saints wide open, but it was just a couple plays that really, made such a big difference. And again, the defense. So I was really surprised. And you saw that in the Saints numbers, their net points went down, the scoring went down. Really, their average got beat up a little bit. So we'll have to see how that portends for the Eagles. You'll tell us, I'm sure. Let's get ready to move on. Next up. Oh, did I say Eagles? Is that what I said? Eagles at Buccaneers by a score of 3.6 favors the Buccaneers, Benny. Eagles are back to winning by small margins again. And the Buccaneers were winning by just enough that, hey, they got the edge here. What do you got?
Eagles at Buccaneers. Let's see. Bucs will be home. They were home last week too, I think. Baker Mayfield and the Bucs have to be reeling after that home loss to Denver last week. This is another one of those inexplicable events, at least for me. I don't know. The Buccaneers did not look like the Buccaneers, especially at home. After a big win over Detroit the week before, they were looking to get off to a 3-0 start. with a home win over a winless team that starts a rookie quarterback. And instead, they came out flat, went 3-and-out twice, got stopped on downs, and threw an interception before they finally found the end zone right before halftime. The second half was even worse, and the loss had to be embarrassing. Now, as far as the Eagles are concerned, they survived the defensive battle with the Saints, winning 15-12, like I said before. After their 1-point loss to Atlanta the week before, it was another kind of quirky game for Philadelphia. They were scoreless in the first half. They had a 3-and-out, 2 turnovers for loss. Jalen Hurts threw an interception and lost a fumble, and they got turned over on downs. So the first half of the game for the Eagles was a mess. They had 0 on the board at halftime. They finally got on the board thanks to Saquon Barkley ripping off a beautiful 65-yard run for a touchdown that happened early in the fourth quarter. So they went 3 quarters without scoring. Early in the fourth quarter that happened. And then later on in the fourth quarter, he punched in another touchdown from short yardage. And then the opposite of what happened to them in the game the week before, where Atlanta stopped their last comeback with an interception. Reed Blankenship killed the Saints' last attempt at a comeback with an interception. Now, I know you said you thought the defense was played pretty well. I thought they played better than they played the week before, but I'm not ready to say they played so well. They were able to kind of mess up the Saints' heads because I believe they felt like they had enough time to try to still kind of mix it up offensively and not necessarily throw it on every down, but they definitely took the run away. They took that away, and that seemed to mess with Derek Carr's head a little bit. Hence the bad throw over the middle, I believe it was, when Blankenship got that interception. So that's how that one went. All that being said, though, Eagles go down to Tampa Bay, and I believe the Bucs will not allow themselves to lose 2 home games in a row. They're going to get it together. They're going to throw that Tampa 2 up there, and they're going to get the win against the Eagles. So take the home team, take the Bucs.
Moving right along, Benny, let's look at the Steelers at the Colts. Biasco score 17.3 favors the Steelers. And what's going on with the Colts, man?
That's funny. You said that funny, like, what's going on with the Colts, man?
What's going on with the Colts?
I don't know. Let's talk about the Colts. First of all, they'll be the home team in this game. Steelers got to go to Indianapolis. Colts played the Bears last week. Anthony Richardson struggled in this one, just like he did the 2 weeks before. He's been struggling in every game. He threw 2 more interceptions, bringing his 3-game total to 6 interceptions. That is not good. They expected a lot more from this guy. Physically imposing, can run, cannon arm, all of that. But I don't think he's got his head on straight as far as his pre-snap reads are concerned. Obviously, his post-snap reads, he's getting confused. He's throwing picks all over the place, and this is not good. He only threw for 167 yards and no touchdowns in this particular game. We're going to credit the victory, though, to the defense that actually limited the Bears to 67 yards rushing. They recorded 4 sacks, 6 quarterback hits, and 7 tackles for loss, pretty much shutting down the Bears offense. Running backs, Jonathan Taylor, and here's a name you'll remember, Trey Sermon, another ex-49er running back, along with Richardson. Trey Sermon carried the ball. The 2 of them carried the ball for a total of 33 times for 150 yards, 2 touchdowns for Taylor, 1 touchdown for Sermon. Good job there. Jonathan Taylor has a nice backup. Sermon didn't get a lot of carries, but when he did touch the ball, he looked good. He looked strong. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 3-0. They continue to do it the old-fashioned way. Justin Fields, who continues to improve week after week, had a very productive day in this one against the LA Chargers. He completed 25 of 32 passes. That's a lot for him. And he contributed to the team's 31 rushing attempts for 114 total yards. He passed for a touchdown and he rushed for one, and he engineered a really nice 20-10 win. The defense sacked Justin Herbert twice, and then when he went out of the game, Taylor Heinicke got sacked 3 times. They had 7 total quarterback hits and recorded 7 turnovers for loss. Again, that pretty much stifles your running game. And the Chargers without a running game with J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards aren't much good to you, on top of the fact that Justin Herbert was actually playing injured. But we'll talk about that later when we talk about the Chargers again. This is a team that prides itself on the ground, and they pretty much had that part of their offense taken away from them. I don't think the Colts are in a good enough position, even though they'll be home, to handle the very balanced, very strong Steelers offense and just as strong, if not stronger, Steelers defense, especially the defense with the Colts offense that doesn't really have it all together. I think I've got to go with the Steelers on this one, even though they were on the road.
The intriguing Steelers over the Colts, going with the bias. 17.3 favors the Steelers, going with the Steelers. All right. Next up, we have Rams at Bears. Bias plus score of 8.8 favors. Excuse me, the Bears? Oh, my goodness. Sometimes these rankings, I mean, the numbers come out as they come out, you know?
Oh, yeah, the numbers are the numbers. There's no doubt about that.
And if I'm not mistaken, and I would have to go back and take a look here, but I think the turnovers had something to do with this.
That could be.
Yeah, fed into it a little bit.
That could be. Let me make myself a little note right here. And then we will talk about, let's see. This is not a West Coast to East Coast. It's a West Coast to Midwest. Bears are at home. After losing by 31 points to the division rival Cardinals in week 2, the Rams hosted the San Francisco 49ers, which is another division opponent. Still missing their 2 wide receivers, Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp, they fell behind and they were down double digits in the fourth quarter. They might have been down even more without a touchdown catch in the second quarter and a touchdown run in the third quarter, both of which came from running back Kyren Williams. I don't even want to say it. Without Kyren Williams, the Rams would be in real trouble. Let me put it that way. But he's getting the job done on the ground and through the air, it looks like. They were able to mount a fourth quarter comeback, starting with a 33-yard field goal by their rookie kicker, Joshua Carty. Then, after the Niners missed a field goal, they scored a third TD, or I should say Kyren Williams scored his third TD. That tied the score at 24. And then another field goal by Carty with 2 seconds left sealed the victory for the Rams. As far as the Bears are concerned, Caleb Williams threw 2 interceptions in a week 2 loss to Houston, and he threw 2 more, plus lost a fumble in another loss, this time to the Colts that we just talked about. That score was 21-16. And what was clearly his best statistical day, 2 of his 3 turnovers led directly to Indianapolis touchdowns. That can't happen. Again, like you said, turnovers, man, they're killers. His 363 passing yards and 2 passing touchdowns were the bulk of their offense without much help from their run game. And despite the defense recording 2 interceptions, they didn't do much else. So, again, Bears look like they're challenged. They got the bias, but there's no way. And they're home too. But Caleb Williams isn't playing very well at all, to tell you the truth. even though, like I said, this was his best statistical day. The turnovers are killing him, and the defense, which was supposed to be really good, just has not been. So I'm going to say that the Rams go into Chicago and get the win. I'm going to go with the Rams.
Going against the bias, going with the Rams, where the bias favored the Bears. And yeah, I understand that. But Ben, this is week 4, right?
Yes, it
This is
is.
the last week of the second preseason, as far as we're concerned. So we're expecting some things to start to change a little bit as teams find their coordination.
Yeah,
And
I think we've definitely
synchronize.
seen that. We've seen that.
Well, hey, look, if the Commanders get any more synchronized, everybody's in trouble. What can I tell you? Here we go. Here we go. Here we go. Niners. The Patriots have to come to us, to the West Coast. Coming out here. Now, I'm hoping that Purdy's feeling better because I heard his back was a little sore. But the bias plus score of 7.3 favors the Niners. Hopefully, Purdy watched Aaron Rodgers slice and dice. He took some notes, slice and dice that Patriot defense up. But what do you have on it?
Niners are at home in this one. This is the East Coast to West Coast matchup, which doesn't really make that much difference except for the fact that you got the possible little bit of jet lag. But anyway, the Patriots were pathetic last week. They lost 24-3 to the New York Jets. They couldn't even crack 200 total yards. That's rushing and passing combined. They had less than 200 total yards. The Jets outgained them. Listen to this. The Jets outgained them 252 yards to 40 yards in the first half of the game. Also in the first half of the game, the Jets had 17 first downs. The Patriots had 4.
That's called slicing and dicing. That's how
Slicing and dicing. That is correct. Now, the Niners suffered their second straight road loss. This one to their division rival, the LA Rams, that we just got finished talking about. They led 14-7 at the half, and they had a 24-14 lead midway through the fourth quarter. Things were really looking like they were going their way. Then all of a sudden, the wheels fell off. First thing happened was Jake Moody missed a 55-yard field goal, which he has hit from beyond 50 a few times this year already, I believe. And then Matt Stafford threw a 50-yard bomb that led to a rushing touchdown, and that tied the score up. Then, with a minute and 2 left, which is actually plenty of time to come back, Ronnie Bell, who I do not know and do not know where he came from, dropped a pass from Purdy that would have put the Niners in field goal range and possibly given them an opportunity to win the game. They then had to punt, and a player that came up off the Rams practice squad, I did not make a note of his name, ran the punt back to the 50-yard line. It was 30-something yard return to the 50-yard line. At that point, linebacker Devondre Campbell committed a pass interference penalty that put the Rams within kicking distance, and they kicked the game-winning field goal. Very tough loss for the 49ers. I believe they will redeem themselves at home and take out the Patriots, who really should not be able to put up much of a defense against them. So I'm going to go with the 49ers to get it's this is what I used to call a get right game. This is a get right game for the Niners.
There you go. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm looking at my Niners and I'm thinking if my Niners have a 2-score lead, my defense should be able to hold that. And we aren't holding anything right now. Our defense looks somewhat porous. And so that's probably where I'm a little more concerned than anything. And yeah, Ronnie Bell, again, there's who was it? Somebody the third we had on our team. Now he's someplace else. I liked him better than Ronnie Bell. So there's different players that you wonder, okay, why did he keep him?
Ray McLeod.
Ray McLeod. Yeah, man. I like Ray, man. But in any event, you're going with the bias, going with the Niners. Go
Yes.
Niners. Who's up next? Oh, a contender. A contender for the intriguing game of the week here. Look, oh, look, man. I misspelled commanders. The Commandeers. Commandeers at the Cardinals. Bias
That's
first score
terrible.
of 7.8 favored the Cardinals, Benny, not the Commandeers, with Jaden Daniels
Now,
versus
t- okay, Jaden Daniels versus Kyler Murray.
Kyler Murray. Well, they don't verse, but you got the two very fun quarterbacks there, right there, man.
So this game is intriguing to you, not only because of the quarterbacks and the similar skill set, but also
Because the Cardinals are playing well.
and also
And also what? Go ahead.
Cliff Kingsbury.
Oh, yes. Cliff
Ah, yes.
Barry gets to go back and contend for a petty football, aka the Steelers.
Oh my God.
I'm just gonna wear that out. What can I tell you?
That's so horrible.
Um, but yeah, okay, gets to go back and play his old team there with a new quarterback. All right, what do you got on it?
So after putting up a perfect passer rating in a 41-10 win over the Rams in week 2, Kyler Murray, who looked really great in that game against the Rams, only threw for 207 yards and 1 touchdown to go with a field goal in the first half. Start off a little slow there. He threw 1 interception to open the second half, and they lost to Detroit 20-13. The Cardinals' run game got shut down. The defense got shredded through the air early, and they got run on throughout the game. Uh, Pretty bad, too, to the tune of 187 yards on 43 carries. That means this team is just like, those offensive linemen are just road grading your team. Bad look for the Cardinals, very bad look. Now, the Washington Commanders beat the Cincinnati Bengals 38-33. We've talked a lot about the records that were set and all that other stuff. But make no mistake, this was the Jaden Daniels show. He finished an almost perfect 21 of 23, 254 yards. He threw for 2 touchdowns and he ran for 1. Classic, dangerous dual quarterback work. Along with Daniels, Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson Jr. scored on the ground. Also, they racked up 108 total yards on the ground, 32 carries. Again, road grading, one of the things that really makes your offensive lineman happy when they can just run the ball and just run the other team over. With those numbers, it's pretty obvious that they won the time of possession battle too. So they had no problem there in that department. Here's the rub, though. Cardinals are at home. I believe they have the goods to rebound from this. I am actually going to go with the Cardinals to win this game. They do have the bias. They will be at home. I know Jaden Daniels is going to be a problem. This is going to be a very, very intriguing game.
A candidate for sure. Going with the Cardinals. Going with the bias. This should be good. Like you said, intriguing candidate for sure. All right. I don't know about this game, Benny. Big question mark on this one. Browns.
You're not intrigued?
Not really.
You're like, nah, not really.
Browns. That's even weirder to me. Is Minshew healthy? Will he be? Is he there?
I don't know. Was he hurt or did he get benched? I tell you, I didn't. I wasn't. I don't remember hearing about him getting
probably
injured.
asked that question for both teams' quarterbacks.
Yeah, I think they benched him. But anyway, let's talk about the Browns first. They'll be on the road. They got to go to Vegas. Nothing but bad news for me as far as the Browns are concerned. First of all, they lost 2 starting offensive linemen and one of their backups got hurt too. That's rough. They also lost star defensive lineman Myles Garrett, their best pass rusher and their best defensive lineman overall. He's been having problems with both of his feet, at least one of them injured enough that he had to come out of the game. I don't know if he'll be able to play next week. Deshaun Watson got sacked 8 times. He got hit 17 times. That's pushed, knocked, tackled, nudged, tripped. He took a beating. Bad look for the Browns. Now, the Raiders. Okay, I was reminded of something. The offensive coordinator for the Raiders is Luke Getsy. I'm sure you've heard that name. He's been running a very conservative offense with very, very vanilla game plans. So much so that the Las Vegas Raider fans have been booing him and booing their offense
Really?
quite a bit at home. Let's remember when we talk about Justin Fields, this guy was the offensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears when Fields first got there. And he was the one that was supposed to be shaping Justin Fields into an NFL quarterback.
So you telling me Luke Getsy is the one I've been hating on all this time? I just didn't know his name.
There you go. And it ain't him by himself, because as we continue to watch the Bears and continue to watch Caleb Williams fail, if that happens, it's not just him, but it's the head coach, Eberflus, also. But we'll save that for another day as we see how the Bears go.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, 296 total yards through the air between Minshew and Aiden O'Connell, who came in later in the game. But out of all that, we only got 1 touchdown. We also got 1 interception from Minshew. They only had 55 yards from their running game, and they lost to the winless Carolina Panthers, 36-22. Even worse, their defense had no answer at all for Andy Dalton. They looked hapless. Wow.
I almost feel like they got bum rushed a bit because, like I said, this was 2 different teams. I mean, defensively.
Yeah, and they really didn't have time. They only had a few days to prepare for Dalton, and they had to dig back to old film from last year to use. You know what I mean? That can throw a team off for sure.
I'm sure. So
yeah, I don't even know how to call this one. I'm not exactly sure what I want to do here. I tell you what, I'm going to look at it like this. I believe that the Browns will benefit from being away from home.
That's an interesting thought.
However, those injuries to that offensive line, man, they're critical.
And the other side, on the defensive line for the Raiders, they have one crazy man called
Max Crosby, but he's only one man.
Yeah, well, he disrupts like 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, he didn't disrupt he didn't disrupt Andy Dalton.
Point.
And the Panthers had their way with them boys. That's crazy. The Raiders run game. Oh, this is a tough one, man. I don't know what I want to do here. I tell you what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to do. I have very little faith in Deshaun Watson, but I have even less faith in Aiden O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. And I've been watching video of that Raiders game and listening to the head coach, Antonio Pierce, talking about dudes making business decisions. I hate that. That rubs me the wrong way. They picked out a guy, I can't remember his name. They called out his name.
Really?
They showed him missing tackles that he could have made, reaching out for stuff instead of, really going, putting his nose in there. And I don't think he was the only one. At first, people thought he was talking about Devontae because he had some theatrics on the sideline and all that. But I don't think it was Devontae Adams. It was some other guys, mostly on his defense. And he prides himself as a defensive coach. There's trouble brewing in Las Vegas for sure. Somebody's getting cut. It's about to get ugly over there. I'm going to take the Browns in this one.
Oh,
I don't want to, but I will.
Huh? Say that again.
I said I don't want to, but I will.
Yeah, like I told you, this was weird to me. I can't. It's. I can't say it's intriguing, but it is a kind of a difficult, to call here. So, but personally, and I never really say what I think, but I don't know why I'm feeling the Raiders on this one. Maybe it's that Max Crosby thing. I'm just, and you were talking about how injured the Browns line is. So
Right.
that guy's a major disruptor. All right, so you're going with the bias, going with the Browns.
Yes.
All righty. Bills at Ravens. Well, Benny, that this is a contender for a game of the week, if not game of the week, period. Bills at Ravens by a score of 23.2 favors the Bills. After that big one that they just had. And who was that? Carson Wentz coming in
23.2
for Josh Allen at the end of that game.
Oh, he's with the Bills now? Oh, yeah, he's the backup. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those guys like him or Mitch Trubisky or somebody, one of that group.
Oh, wait. No, it wasn't Trubisky. Trubisky started with the Bills.
I think it's Carson Wentz.
Could be. I didn't watch the end of the game. I kind of cut that off.
But they had two games flowing, and the other one was the Commanders game, right?
Yeah, Commanders Bengals, yeah.
Yeah, so after a while you're looking at the Ravens, Bills. I mean, at the Bills beating up on those guys, and we're like, okay, let's go over to a competitive game.
Yeah, after I realized that the Bills were doing so well, and then I looked at the second game, and I had the Bills defense on one of my fantasy teams that was losing. And I had Joe Burrow on a different fantasy team that was losing. And I felt confident that when I woke up the next morning, I would have won both of those games. So I went to bed with a smile on my face. I didn't even want to watch the games. And in fact, I did win both of those games.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, Burrow put up big numbers for me, and the Bills looked really good too. And they gave me enough points to win both of those games. So that worked out well. I slept like a baby. Now, so Bills at Ravens. Ooh, I don't know what to make of these Ravens, man. I'm telling you. They went to AT&T Stadium to play the Cowboys. They were 0-2. Again, if somebody told you in the preseason that the Baltimore Ravens would start the season off with 2 losses, we probably both say, I don't think so. Not the Baltimore Ravens. But in fact, they went into AT&T Stadium at 0-2. Then they proceeded to play Ravens football. It's about damn time. They came away with a 28-25 victory over the Cowboys. They pounded the rock, and they controlled the clock. I think I talked to, I don't know how many people, and maybe even you, we might have had a conversation, and I said the Ravens ain't going to really win until they give the ball to Derrick Henry at least 20 to 25 times. Just give it to him 20. Stop with this 18 carries. That's not going to get it. Give the man the rock, then you'll win the game. Lamar only threw 15 passes, and he completed 12 of them for a mere 182 yards. But he did throw one for a touchdown, and the real damage was actually done on the ground. And it was a lot of damage. Lamar ran the ball 14 times for 87 yards. That's classic Lamar. And and a touchdown. And Derrick Henry had 25 carries, as I called for 151 yards and 2 touchdowns. Now, that domination on the ground and a solid defense held off the Cowboys, who did have a late rally, but couldn't come back in that one. There's a big, big issue with the Cowboys D-line. These boys can't stop a cold, let alone running backs. That's rough. But anyway, that was the Ravens with a nice win over the Cowboys. Now the Bills had a romp over the Jaguars 47-10. We talked about this game earlier. Let's look at it from the Bills side, though. Josh Allen threw 4 touchdown passes. 2 touchdowns were scored on the ground, one by James Cook, who's looking wonderful. He's a top 3 running back, at least top 5. I believe he's top 3. I have to look at the stats. He's having a great season right now, James Cook. And his backup, Ray Davis, actually got into the game, and he scored a touchdown on the ground also. The defense sacked Trevor Lawrence 5 times and hit him 9 times, and the defense looks strong. Before the season started, I was looking at how many defensive players the Bills actually lost, really good players. Some of them I thought were mainstays on that team. I didn't think too much about Stephon Diggs leaving. I thought Khalil Shakir showed me enough that he could step into the number 1 wide receiver role. But I was worried about the defense. But their defense looks really, really good. And Shakir looks good. And Josh Allen made a little statement about throwing to no name receivers, which was a little dig at Diggs. But that being said, Josh Allen's looking great. He's feeling great. Obviously, he's got a smile on his face, running the ball and throwing the ball really well. I believe they're going to go down to Baltimore and get the win. I'm going with the Bills.
Going with the bias, going with the Bills. And then what you said about Derrick Henry. I don't know if you saw this, but Derrick Henry got the scepter this week for the
angry runs. Excellent.
That was after he the boy was coming up from behind him and he stiff-armed him into the ground. It was such a classic. Derrick Henry, like in the face, into the ground. And he said the guy wasn't in the front, he was behind him. Still got stiff.
The stiff arm is deadly, man. It's deadly. You ever see any of his workouts on YouTube?
Yeah.
Insane.
He's crazy. Well, Benny, that was the Sunday night game. So we'll all be able to focus in on one game and watch all the intricacies of 2 top-notch teams. And, of course, this has to be on the intriguing game of the week. That's why I said I had to wait and take a look at the full slate here.
Yeah, this is going to be a good one.
We can say, but we got a doubleheader on Monday nights again. And it was funny. Some of the people on Good Morning Football were complaining they don't like the doubleheader thing. They want to be able to focus on the game, so they kind of don't like the doubleheader Monday night thing. So we'll see how that works. Chiefs at Chargers. And the bias plus score favors the Chargers. Chiefs are having one of those Eagle seasons where they're winning, but it's not impressing anybody, and they were acting like they're losing and winning. But the Chargers, Harbaugh's there. He's making his stamp early. So what do you got on this?
Excuse me. Justin Herbert started out the game against the Steelers, even though he had a gimpy ankle. There were some questions as to whether he'd be able to go. He did have limited practices before the game, came out, warmed up, felt like he could go, so they put him in there. He had to come out of the game in the 4th quarter, and he ended up with a boot on his foot, so he obviously could not handle the pressure of getting through the whole game. He had a measly 210 total yards, and that's not going to beat anybody, especially a Pittsburgh defense that was playing really well, handed out 5 sacks, 7 quarterback hits, and 7 tackles for loss. Pittsburgh defense is the perfect type of defense for the type of offense that they have. And I think that's a big part of why they've been so successful and that they're 3-0 here, along with the fact that Justin Fields is improving week by week. Now, the Chiefs held on and beat the Falcons 22-17 on the road, thanks to a couple of real strong red zone stops by their defense. They've now won 3 games by a combined 13 points. That ain't much. A lot of people in KC are happy that they're 3-0, but they're not happy about the way that they're playing. And I know a lot of people are really upset that Jason Kelce has not been a large part of this offense for these first 3 games. He hasn't even been a small part. I don't think this guy's getting even a good number of targets, let alone catches. But I'm sure they'll fix that. Patrick Mahomes did throw 2 touchdowns. He did throw 1 interception. Harrison Butker kicked 3 field goals. That accounted for all the scoring, and they had a solid run game, and the defense helped win the game by taking care of the time of possession and making those 2 big stops in the red zone in the fourth quarter to stop the Falcons from coming back. I have no doubt in my mind that the Kansas City Chiefs will take a short trip over to LA and handle their business against the Chargers. The Chargers are going to be in for some real reality checks in the next few weeks. I'm not giving up on them because I do respect their run game, but they got to get Justin Herbert healthy again. They really do, for them to have a chance. But in this one, they have no chance. Chiefs are going to take care of business.
All right, going against the bias, going with the Chiefs. All right, well, that's 1 game on Monday night, Benny. We have another game on Monday night. Titans at Dolphins. Bias plus score of 6.2 favors the Dolphins. And who's that? Skylar Thompson, quarterbacking for the Dolphins still?
Maybe.
And Will Levis for the Titans?
Yeah, man, it's not looking good in Titanville, I'll tell you that. But anyway, I said earlier that the Titans had no chance in their game with the Packers last week. Will Levis did throw for 260 yards. He did throw 2 touchdown passes, which I'm sure his coach was happy about. But he also threw 2 interceptions and lost a fumble, which I know his coach was not happy about. He already kind of sounded on him in the post-conference interview the week before, pretty much saying, I mean, it sounded like he was blaming the game on him. He's like, I can't believe he did that. You can't do that. We're not going to win if he does that. And then he comes out and he has 3 turnovers on himself. That's a bad deal for the Titans. Now, as far as Miami, where am I? I'm sorry, I lost my place. Oh, yeah.
Let me say this much real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You said the coach was ragging on him?
Yeah.
So was the entire world going, you can't do that.
I know, but your head coach can't. Your head coach shouldn't throw you under the bus like that. That's not
Maybe
cool.
not, but it's not like everybody wasn't saying you can't do that. You know what I mean?
No, I understand that. We're supposed to say that.
Well,
your head coach ain't supposed to say that. You already having organizational problems. Your defense is looking weak and out of place, and you just let Vrabel go, who prided himself on defense and had the defense playing well when he was the head coach there. So now everybody's looking at this head coach funny, and he throws his quarterback under the bus. Not a good look.
All right, you say so, but go ahead.
Not a good look. I mean, just because it's true doesn't mean he has to say it. You know what I mean?
Go ahead. I mean,
that's crazy. Anyway, Tua Tagovailoa is out because of a concussion again. The Dolphins started Skylar Thompson against the Seahawks. They could not run the ball effectively, and Thompson got sacked 5 times. He eventually went out with a chest injury. I don't know if he'll be able to come back and play this week coming up. They replaced him with Tim Boyle. Tim Boyle came in. He couldn't get anything going either. Altogether, Thompson and Boyle suffered 12 quarterback hits. The Dolphins are in really, really, really bad shape. The defense is a mess. Their quarterback situation is in flux. Their run game is really shaky. they need to have a balanced offense for their run game to go because their offensive line isn't that good, to tell you the truth. They can't just come out and say, hey, guess what? We're just going to run the ball and we're going to dominate. They're not that kind of an offense. So they're really in trouble. I believe that Will Levis is going to right the ship, at least for one weekend. He's going to get away from his home fans who've been booing him, and he's going to go down, take some pressure off of himself, and beat the Dolphins.
Going
against the bias.
The bias.
Going with the Titans.
Going with the Titans. All right, Benny, I can understand that. Yeah, I mean, two teams that a lot of question marks on. And then Benny, right before the game, Russell Wilson's going to show up in a Dolphins uniform and mess up the whole bye.
I mean, at this point, if they weren't thinking about it, they need to very seriously think about it.
I think so, to be quite honest with you. You know what I mean? I think
if Thompson can't go and they have to start Boyle, that means they have to bring another quarterback up from somewhere, somebody, because they won't have a backup.
Yeah. And who's sitting on the sideline? Former Tennessee Titans quarterback, right? He didn't get picked up, did he?
Who, Tannehill?
Yeah.
No, I think Tannehill's still out there.
Yeah.
That's a thought. They better hurry up, though. What's today? Today, Wednesday?
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of late for him to make a difference this weekend, even if they did bring him in. He have to get at least a week under his belt.
All right, but you're going against the bias, going with the Titans, right?
Yep.
Seahawks at Lions, and this is an intriguing game. Bias plus score of 7, favoring the Seahawks. And it's like the Vikings are the new Lions. I mean, we were all expecting so much from the Lions, but the Vikings are coming out of that division like they were the Lions, like they're the favorites right now.
This right now is the toughest division in the NFL as far as I'm concerned. People were saying the AFC North with the Steelers and the Bengals and the Ravens, but no, they got nothing on this NFC North. This is crazy. Lions, Vikings, Bears, and Packers. I mean, obviously the Bears look like the little brother out of all of this, but every matchup this season between the Lions, the Bears, and the Packers is going to be a tough one. It's going to be really hard to call it as to who you think is going to come out of this division. But anyway, let's talk about Seahawks first, because I find this very interesting. I always talk about West Coast teams going to the East Coast and playing in 1:00 games. I can't remember if, in fact, the Seahawks-Miami game was a 1:00 game. But here's the deal. A West Coast team traveling to the East Coast is tough enough for that West Coast team. But Seattle to Miami is the longest trip possible for an NFL team traveling within the continental United States. That is the longest trip, Seattle to Miami. That being said, the Seahawks came in and handled their business. They didn't waste any time asserting their dominance over the Dolphins. This is how bad the Dolphins are, that this team could get on an airplane and travel all that distance and get off the plane and put a whooping on their team, on that home team. Geno Smith threw for 289 and 1 score. Zach Charbonnet, backup running back for Kenny Walker, rushed for 91 yards and 2 more scores. The defense abused the Dolphins and finished them off 24-3. No problem. That's why I have no faith in the Dolphins at this point. Now, Lions. Jared Goff was sharp. 18 out of 23, 199, 2 touchdowns. He did throw 1 pick, but he got plenty of help from his ground game. 187 total yards. That's a lot. He got 16 carries and 83 yards from Jahmyr Gibbs and 23 carries for 105 from David Montgomery. That's thunder and lightning right there. Nice backfield tandem. Seahawks look good. They look strong. But the Lions also look good, and they look strong. This has to be an intriguing game candidate also. Ah, boy, oh boy. This is a toughie. I like both, and I like both defenses, but I believe the Seahawks defense is a bit more established. The Lions defense is better than it was. They've made a lot of improvements, and they're really, really tough against the run. They still got a few holes in the secondary, but they're really good against the run. You know what? I just convinced myself. If they can shut down the run, I don't know if Geno's got enough juice to beat them. I'm going to take the Lions at home.
Oh, going with an upset. Going with the Lions. Okay. All right.
Well, I wouldn't call it an upset. It's against the bias.
Well, you upset the bias then. And you know that Lions are what? They're in the middle of the country, so the trip won't be as long.
Right.
For the Seahawks. All right. So yeah, I'm sorry, I kind of confused the Sunday and the Monday night doubleheader. This was the other Monday night game, and then that leaves us with the closeout, which we have so much fun with, and that is the bias plus buster of the week. You ready for this, Benny? Are you ready?
Sure.
This is the first. Saying it's the first because I don't remember it ever happening before. It's a tie.
Oh, we had two?
Yeah. The
Eagles Broncos.
The Eagles had an unfavorable bias score of 41 with a net win of +3. The Broncos had an unfavorable bias score of 25, but their net win was 19. Add it all together, and it comes to a bias plus the score of 44 for both teams.
Good job.
Good job. Yeah. And it's interesting because you see how they can both come from different areas, you know. But I mean, the Eagles was the bias against the Eagles was massive because the Saints was just demolishing people coming into that game, you know.
Right.
They
That was a big bias
in their favor, you know.
Yeah.
And then the Broncos, you know, came in. And
so it's impressive for the Eagles in the respect of the margin of the bias, but it's really impressive for the Broncos because they played the Buccaneers, right? I think the Bucks looked at them as I think they chalked that one up.
Mm-hmm.
They had to take them lightly, and it does happen. You know, you tell little league kids, we don't take anybody lightly. Respect your opponent. Play everybody hard, but it's tough sometimes. It's tough sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, and you know, we always talk about these young guys, and you know, you always say, you know, they might be in the NFL. They're the same age as the guys that are playing with you out there in the flag leagues.
That's right.
All that kind of good stuff. So amazing. I had a great weekend. I don't know. When do we say who the intriguing game is going to be? Did we say that after the video?
Oh, I don't know. I just help you throw up the candidates. You got to make the decision.
Well, I'm going with the Bills and the Ravens. I mean, that's
Bills Ravens. I can't argue that one.
Yeah, that's hard. That's a hard one to argue, man. That's like a heavyweight fight right there. You know, I can't wait to see it. I cannot wait to see it.
I tell you what, I think is going to end up being the best game, though. That Seahawks Lions game. That's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
They're going to get it in.
There was a few in that selection. So, all right. Well, look, that's all I got for now.
Oh, just a note: Christian McCaffrey is still having problems with that Achilles tendonitis. He traveled over to Germany to see a specialist about it. That's not good. It's not good for Niner fans. It's not good for the team, and it's not good for me and my biggest and most important fantasy team either. He's my top franchise player. I've been missing him. Mason's been filling in nicely, but I hope he can come back.
You know, when you mentioned it, I knew he had gone somewhere, but I'll be quite honest with you. There's been a few other athletes that have made this trip over to Germany.
Yeah.
And I think they had pretty successful results.
Well, that's
So whatever
good.
they're doing over there, and we'll have to maybe take a closer look at it. But yeah, it could be better news, in a bit. So we'll just have to kind of sit back and wait for that and see how that goes. So
Here, this is what I was looking for. Sunday's Raiders Panthers matchup marked the first game in NFL history between two teams with female presidents. Sandra Douglas Morgan and Christy Coleman are two female presidents. Sandra Douglas Morgan, I believe, is the president of the Raiders, and Christy Coleman is president of the Panthers. So that's the first time in NFL history that happened. I know we like to keep up with our current events, and anytime the ladies take part in something in the NFL, we like to let folks know.
awesome. All right, that wraps it up for Ben and Baron football. Today again, September 25th. Please remember, if you're on YouTube, to click the subscriber button and hit the notification bell so that you'll get notified as soon as we get these videos up online. That's all I got, Benny.
That's it for me.
Peace
Peace out, y'all.